a question I've wanted to ask you all for years, so I'm so excited to get to ask it. How can you do this, inform people?
Just broke your set.
Okay, we're going to keep that in there.
Yeah.
Was it hard being unbiased when you have such deep personal opinions about what's happening in the world?
In some ways, it was very easy, and in other ways, it was hard. I remember, like, in the earliest days, so anytime we would write about Israel, we would get mail from both sides of the issue saying we were biased. And we were like, great, we did our job because everybody hates us. and I think that,
so perfect.
like, we were like, this, I mean, it's literally the same sentence.
Yep.
Like, both sides are telling us what's wrong with the sentence and why it's biased. And we were like, okay. And that started happening a lot in the 2016 election. It would be the same sentence, and we would get inbound from both sides of the aisle. And at that point, you could say both sides of the aisle. Today, you can't even like really say that. There's many aisles. And we literally used to write the Skimm like about an issue. We would say what the right says, what the left says. And our audience was very split pretty much down the middle by 2016 politically. And so we had like a real responsibility to be like, we're not catering to a coastal audience. We have huge parts of our audience live throughout the whole country, and they are not what you think. All millennials vote in a certain way in New York and LA and whatever. Like, we represented millennial women across the country, and we really have taken that very seriously, and the brand continues to take that very seriously. And I think, once you kind of clarify like what you're doing here, what's the service you're providing, it becomes much easier.
This episode right here is proof that cold DMs can work. I will find the literal DM and screenshot it, put it on my Instagram that I sent to Zakin and Danielle Weisberg, founder of theSkimm. I fell in love with theSkimm a while ago. I was one of the early subscribers. I'm sure everyone says that. But I fell in love with them and their co-founder relationship even more. They are unfiltered, real, raw about building something to millions of subscribers. And what it's like to build something that is also kind of influencing politics, motherhood, so many ways that people get their information. And it's just a really, really great interview that I was just so happy to be a part of. So also, if there's someone you want to talk to, they might not always say yes, but shoot your shot. This is proof that it might work. Enjoy the episode.
But I'd love to start with your meet cute. You all met in Rome. What a Mary-Kate and Ashley movie this is.
I know. I'm Ashley.
Yes. Tell me about y'all's meet cute story.
So we both did a study abroad program in Rome from like separate universities, but signed up for the same program. And so there was like 150 kids, I think, on the program. And I remember we met in the I wouldn't even call it was like the main room of this little campus. And we were both looking for like the fried artichokes that Rome is famous for. And so we were like, I don't know if we were talking about it or like looking at a guide or map or something, but like that's how we like originally like introduced ourselves was over these like fried artichoke search.
And it was just love at first fried. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's so funny because like looking back on it now, people are like, how did you meet? But at the time, I mean, we were 19, 20 years old. Just having a great time. Yeah. And went our separate ways. And then we reconnected when we were both working at NBC News after college. Yeah. And Carly was in New York, New Jersey, and I was in DC. But we were kind of circling the same people and clearly in the same industry. And that's when we reconnected. But it is one of those moments when, for a long time, and we actually haven't said this, but it's like in a couple of years, but you never know when you meet someone when they're going to come back in your life or what kind of role they're going to play. So like, don't be a jerk.
Also, I realized yesterday our 20th anniversary is coming up.
Oh,
isn't that weird?
My
Yes.
gosh, we should have had
That is
champagne
very weird.
here.
I don't know what you get each other for 20.
You know, that's interesting. I'm curious if you all have ever experienced this when you said, like, don't be a jerk, because you two are very disarming. I mean, you are, and I mean that in the best way, where you meet a lot of founders who have made it big like you, and that they let you know how big they are. And you two are so just humble, whether that's online or here, and tell the real story. One of the pet peeves that I have as someone who does speaking and is not as big out there as you all, but when people change once they know that you are someone.
Mm-hmm. And I hate that. Yeah.
Do you all ever experience that where someone is interacting with you and then all of a sudden a shift happens once they know who you are and what you do?
Yeah, all the time. One of my favorite stories, it's like funny because we're really close to the person now, but it was like in one of our earlier offices, somebody came in, I think they were on a different floor, or we were in the same building, and they came in and they were like, I don't know, they came in and asked me a question about the space and the company, and they were like, well, who's your founder? Who's the CEO? And they were very rude. And I was like, me. And they completely changed. And I think, also we were very young when we started. We looked, I think, very young, less so now. And I think, that's happened all the time where, people, a lot of times, and I get it, people are busy, work is transactional in a lot of capacities, and you're going to go to a work event or a networking thing, and you're like, I got to get as much as I can out of this. And so people want to make sure it's worth their time. But it is very funny when you see the switch of somebody being like, oh, I should talk to you, or I should pay attention. And also, oh, you're not relevant to me anymore. That's happens a lot.
Okay, tell me about that.
That's what I was going to say. It's I think
you actually posted about this. I was like, somebody posted a great thing on Instagram. It was you. Oh my God. It was you. We were talking about it.
You mean someone besides my mom follows me? This is great. Yeah.
No, it was you. You posted how you saw somebody at a conference or an event. You always thought about them as a peer. And they very much made you
feel like a fan.
And
I've had that. I had that in a big way about 2 years ago. And I called Carly after. And I was really upset by it. And because I think you feel at least we felt you're on this journey together. And you're seeing the same things. And it is almost like you're living a different universe when people don't take it in the same way. You're like, wait, we had this same experience together. And I know that we talked about this. And I know that when you posted, whatever picture that looked perfect, what was really going on in the background. And so then it's kind of wait, am I losing my mind? And I think that you talked about humility. I think that for us, it's not a choice. It's just this is real life. This is our real life. We are not trying to make it seem like it's there's a different glossier version. That sounds really exhausting. Yeah. And it's already so hard to do what you do every day as businesswomen, as founders, as partners, as moms, all of it, to be in the position to put on airs or even try to have to cover up part of my day. It just feels that would be so much harder. Yep. And I think also as you grow up as people, and we've been doing startups now. I mean, it's crazy. It's been a 14-year journey for us. You go through ebbs and flows, and I think for us, we just decided we came out as real people because that was the only choice.
Yeah. And you're changing what it looks like for people when you're honest.
Yeah.
People, I think about my daughter looking around and learning what's possible for her when you see all these perfect people, or you only see men who are running things, and you start to form these opinions of what's possible. In fact, we had someone in Mic Drop put their speaking photo into some AI and say, and she wasn't going to use it, but she was just curious. She said, edit this photo to make me look like a sought after in demand speaker. And she is a beautiful Asian woman, and it turned her into a white man.
I was waiting for that.
Oh my
it turned her into a
That's
white
a real
man.
mic drop.
That's a real mic drop.
Wow.
And then just last week, I was speaking at an event, and we were doing, and it was like for a very big company, and we were doing run throughs of just the transitions of coming up on stage, practicing, okay, we're going to do a hug or a handshake, you know?
Right.
And the CEO, you know, he was introducing me. He comes, and this is just during the trial, we shake hands. And then he says to his team, so is the actual speaker coming for a run through? And I know the moment he said it, I was like,
oh my God.
Oh, I am the actual speaker. Same thing that someone's like, is your like founder or boss?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I could be pissed about this, or I could be, oh wow, we are really changing what it looks like to be in these positions of influence. So has it really sunk in for you all? Because I know when you're a founder, you're just running full speed, obviously running the Skimm, eventually to acquisition, but has it sunk in what you all have truly done? Like, has there been a moment where you're like, holy shit, we did this?
You know, I feel like our journey is, you know, we never really like have talked about it this way, but when I think about the journey, it was like the early stages, the early years was like, it was the rocket ship where you were just like, can't believe what's happening. It's happening. It's happening. Oh my God. Oh my God. And we were running on adrenaline. We were like seeing all this impact happening. You know, it was just like everything was like up and to the right. Like it was amazing. And then, you know, it was a combination of like life happened to us personally. COVID happened. Media industry started changing. Like all of the things that we all know about. And literally physically like working from home, not traveling, like rocket ships just kind of stopped because like we were all grounded for a while. And I feel like when we came out of the pandemic, it was like this very humbling thing, I think, for everybody about, you know, how do businesses survive? How do businesses run profitably? How do businesses and media in a really fast changing landscape like continue to exist? And I feel like we shifted to like a real state of like heads down and gratitude of recognizing like the impact and the strength of the business and the brand, and also kind of just like going inward a lot. Yeah. And I feel, you know, it never gets old to hear how people are like, you know, the Skimm changed how I do blank, whether it's vote, whether it's be informed about a topic, ask questions at the doctor, like whatever it is, that never gets old. But I do feel we've been so in it that I don't know if we've like really taken this step back to be like, oh my gosh, like look at this story.
I also think part of it is, you know, you think about yourself when you're 25 years old and that feels like a different version of you. And then when you're 30 or 35, like, you know, there are different versions of you, but we were still building the same company. And while our responsibilities in the company looked vastly different over those years, it is for us not just about being able to take it in, but also like being proud of that person, but not having that much in common with them anymore.
Yeah.
And so because our life and our work was so intermingled for a while, parts allow me to be very, very proud. And then a lot of it is like, I don't even know how I had the foresight to do that. Or I don't know who that person was. Like, was that really me? And I think
totally get
that is, you know, it's weird to have to feel like you've taken it in when parts feel like those were decisions made by a totally different person that had very different priorities in a very different cultural moment in time.
Yeah. What were those priorities in the beginning when starting the Skimm? I know you've told the founder story a million times, so if you could give me the TLDR version of quitting NBC, starting Skimm from your couch, what were the priorities then, and then how did it evolve as the company evolved and as you all evolved?
So I'll tell you like what actually hasn't changed, because I'm like very proud that those things haven't changed, is I think in the, you know, earliest stages, like we were, you know, we had met, we were friends, we both worked at NBC, we both loved where we worked. It was like dream jobs, dream trajectories. And yet there was a disconnect of our friends not tuning into what we were watching and what did our friends represent. Like, this is aging us, but millennial women. And at the time, we didn't know that we were millennials. Like, that was not even part of like the verbiage that anybody used, which is so funny to think about now. And so we were like, well, we could fix that. And we know how to talk to our friends. We know their schedules. Like, we'll just email them. And this is pre all the emails now in our inbox. This is pre really making news conversational. And we were kind of like first to market with that in many ways. And when I think about the priorities, like in the literally like our second meeting we ever took, it was this founder we met. They answered the door. They were barefoot and in their office. They were barefoot in their office and like looked like they had not slept in a year. And we left that meeting and we were like, no matter what happens, never become
We're
that.
not being that. Yeah.
And so I think our priorities were always like, we really want to make something like big and successful, but never at the cost of like our family, our time with our family, our health, like physical and mental health. Like that really scared us.
Yep.
So I think that that priority, like honestly, was always consistent, and I'm very proud of that.
And I do think that maybe now it's getting talked about, but I never think it gets talked about enough, which is there is a trade-off. And I think more and more, and we'll see what happens with AI if it changes this. But I do think if you are going to build, not for every case, but if you're going to build the $1 billion plus, business, I see a lot more of the examples of people trading off their health, their time with their family, than I do of, making the decision that we made. And I think it is a real calculus that, now looking back, someone asked me the other day, like, would you do a startup again? And I was like, I wouldn't do it in the same way, because I think that, whether you like it or not, you have to put in the hours. It has to be kind of the central point in your life. It has to be in order to get it off the ground.
Yes.
To get it to a certain point.
And something I found so fascinating about you all that is the opposite of what people are saying is you all are de-influencing people to become founders.
Yeah.
And talking 9 to 5 is great. It can be wonderful. And so if founder startup life isn't for everyone, who is it for?
So I hope we're not de-influencing people from being founders. I hope that we influence people like to have agency in their career. And like what that means to us is like, we had a great job. And I remember we each, we had different jobs, but I remember like we quit, we launched, we went back to our I would say our hometown, to our old company, and like visited people like 3 months later. And I remember we both left and were like, our lives have literally changed dramatically in 3 months. Everything had changed. And had we stayed at that job, everything was exactly the same. Like it was like time stood still, and out here, it was like that shows Severance. It was like out here, everything was like totally different for us. And to me, that was like the moment where I'm like, no matter what has happened, we've changed our careers. Like we took our career and we like completely took ownership of it, and not with money and not with anything other than like gumption. Like I don't even know where it came from, but like this grit to be like, I'm going to make you into a career that works for me and take the thing that I love so much, which was working in media and news, and like make it work for me and like scale it. And I think that being a founder, raising money, finding a co-founder, not for everybody. Yeah. And that totally is dependent on your personal situation, financial and otherwise. But I think that like taking ownership of career paths that nobody, not one industry is like a linear path now. Not one industry is not being disrupted right now. Like everybody has to have agency, and they are the CEO of like themselves. And I hope that people are influenced by that, and like what that ends up looking like, whether that's entrepreneurial, like whatever that is, like that's your own story.
I think we seek to just be honest about what it takes to build something that didn't exist before. And so, whether that de-influences people from going down that path, I think it's probably better that they know that. But at the end of the day, if you see that and you want to go forward with it, like we want people to know what it's like. we always say if we knew how hard it was, like, why would anyone do this?
So true.
But people tried to tell us, and we were like, it'll be fine.
So there's this like amazing naivete for your first time doing it. Totally. That I'm like, no matter what, it sucks that we'll never have that again because it made you think you could do anything.
I know. And now I'm like, I almost have too much data.
Yeah, you know too much.
And I hope we're not taking that away from people. I think part of it, honestly, is that we've grown up as people. So it's one thing if, you're 25 years old, you're not supporting a family, you are, not trying to climb out of mountains of debt. Mm-hmm. You have enough of some sort of foundation. And then that is very different than, having a family and doing risk calculus about both your time and your money.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the spirit of honesty, was there ever a time that you were like, I don't want to do this anymore?
Yes, all the time.
Okay, can you take me to that moment?
I mean, I think there was a period where it was pretty much like daily. I think the pandemic, I was having a really hard time. I was pregnant with my first child. The world was, insane. No one knew what was going to happen. And it was a really hard time in everyone's business where business metrics, especially for us, were going gangbusters. Mm-hmm. But managing people through that instability, going completely remote, trying to give people a sense of security and a sense of, purpose when at the same time, you're trying to figure out how you can see a path through. Because while metrics are going well, you don't know what the next 30 days are going to look like. And that was the state that we lived in for, a year, 18 months, and not just us, everyone. Mm-hmm. And that was a point where I remember just feeling like, is the amount of stress worth it?
Worth it.
Yeah.
And I remember one of our board members said, you can leave, but you can't leave like this. Mm. And I thought that was a phenomenal piece of advice because I think what I needed to hear was that I wasn't captive to something that I had created. It wasn't necessarily that I wanted to leave. I just wanted to feel like I had a choice.
Yeah. So good. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, the same moment. I remember that call with that board member. I was sitting on the steps outside my home, and I'm a very private person. I don't outwardly usually show emotion. If I cry, I go, in another room. And I just remember sitting sobbing on the call and trying to muffle it so that the board member wouldn't hear, which they obviously did. And I was just this has cracked me. And I think honestly, it was everybody was going through it. And I think it was the first time, it wasn't just the pandemic. It was, we were as a country, having this real moment of reckoning. Yeah. And the management aspect of it was just a layer that really came out of nowhere, where I wasn't prepared to know how to manage through something like that. And I think I was also, you were pregnant, you were about to go on leave. We didn't even have HR in a real capacity. And I was just why am I doing this? For what? And that was a moment where, it was, I think to your point, it was neither of us do well, feeling stuck. Mm-hmm. And I think just having somebody say you're not stuck was just all we needed to hear.
It goes back to the autonomy that you were talking about. So you all stayed and led theSkimm to an eventual acquisition. What was the moment, you felt like giving up? How did you mentally get re-engaged again? What did that look like?
Well, I think, and this is kind of when you're do you recognize what you've created? And I'm the business was always strong. We went through the ups and downs that everybody in media has gone through, but the proof was always in the user engagement and the user interaction. And honestly, on any day that was just tough, it's all you had to do was read user emails and be this is how this company and this brand and this product are changing lives. And that was like a huge motivator where I feel like I cannot imagine what it must have been like in that point in time to go to work and not have that work matter. And I just remember saying to the team all the time, like, everything is so uncertain. The only thing I can tell you is that our work matters. Like, it's making a difference. And I feel like everybody in that moment and in that period of time was so just felt very helpless and was like, how do I make my time here count and wake up every day and like feel purpose? And I remember being like, there's nothing I would be doing that would give me better purpose than informing people right now in like a moment of information crisis, health crisis, et cetera.
See, I think actually what you said is the way that I started framing it for myself. Like, well, what would I do? Like, for a long time, there was nothing else that it was like, okay, I'm burnt out, as many founders are, and going through the ups and downs of the business like anything in media, but also coming back to, we did this ourselves. Like, this is us, whether, you know, it sinks or swims, is on us. And so what is the alternative?
Yeah.
And I think framing it that way, and I think especially after, you know, becoming a parent too, you realize building something for yourself, being able to determine day by day, hour by hour, what the priority is, becomes extremely valuable.
Yeah. I want to hit on motherhood, but before that, was it ever hard? There was something a question I've wanted to ask you all for years, so I'm so excited to get to ask it. How can you do this, inform people?
Just broke your set.
We're going to keep that in there.
Yeah.
Was it hard being unbiased when you have such deep personal opinions about what's happening in the world? What's it like running a news media company when you feel certain ways?
In some ways, it was very easy, and in other ways, it was hard. I remember, like, in the earliest days, so just giving us like a year's point of reference, like well before October 7th of 2023, like this is, you know, in 2012 to 2016, let's just say. Anytime we would write about Israel, we would get mail from both sides of the issue saying we were biased. And we were like, great, we did our job because everybody hates us. and I think that,
so perfect.
like, we were like, this, I mean, it's literally the same sentence.
Yep.
Like, both sides are telling us what's wrong with the sentence and why it's biased. And we were like, okay. And that started happening a lot in the 2016 election. It would be the same sentence, and we would get inbound from both sides of the aisle. And at that point, you could say both sides of the aisle. Today, you can't even like really say that. There's many aisles. And we literally used to write the Skimm like about an issue. We would say what the right says, what the left says. And our audience was very, you know, split pretty much down the middle by 2016 politically. And so we had like a real responsibility to be like, we're not catering to a coastal audience. We have huge parts of our audience live throughout the whole country, and they are not what you think all millennials vote in a certain way in New York and LA and whatever. Like, we represented millennial women across the country, and we really have taken that very seriously, and the brand continues to take that very seriously. So when there was so much noise, and, you know, I'll say, obviously we all know the noise kind of began entering a new era starting in 2016. When the noise really started, like, it actually was very easy to write and deliver the news because you could clear out what's real, what's a story, and what's just been kind of spun up to make headlines. So that part, I think, was very easy. I think where it started, you know, like getting in uncharted territory, or where you would talk to a lot of your peers in the news industry, is obviously there's been a lot of stories that have, you know, tug on either personal beliefs or religion or, you know, children. And I think we just always go back to, like, what's our role here?
Yeah.
Our role here is not to tell people what to think. Our role here has always been to say, like, here's what the issue is. Here's how to here's like what to understand. Here's what the facts are that are actually facts. And then here's what people are saying about it and how you can converse about it. And I think, once you kind of clarify like what you're doing here, what's the service you're providing, it becomes much easier.
We had the same conversation at Mic Drop. We help women get paid more through public speaking. And I, as a founder, want to insert my opinion over everything that's happening. I want to talk about everything. And my team, so rightfully so, we had this brand meeting where it was like, what is our role here? Our role is advancing women. So anytime something around women is in the news, let's enter the conversation. Yeah. Otherwise, we're joining the group chat when it's like, what is she doesn't even go here. What is she doing here?
I also think part of it is it goes back to the business model, right? And so the business model for the brand that we created was not around polarization of one party over another. There are certain examples of news organizations that do that, and they do it extremely well from a monetization standpoint, right? Like you can agree or disagree with their standpoint, but at the end of the day, like their job is to get a base of people that all think the same way, like really motivated around whatever is being talked about that day. That was not our business model. Our business model was looking at the strength, the wealth, the power of women that they were stepping into and then continue to grow into. And arming them with information to make decisions. And what we had to stay firm on was we truly believe in that. So we aren't going to tell them what decisions to make. And we can say that, but it's, then it becomes real. Like you have to respect your audience enough to let them make their own decision. I also think, one of the parts of the business that we are most proud of is the social impact work that we did around voter registration, around paid family leave, around, making clear the cost of childcare and what it looks like and how much it costs to like be supported and be working, and how big of a kind of delta there is as a country to getting there. And so that I always felt like was for our team, very motivating, where everyone here that was working for us at the time is very informed. So you're obviously going to have your own feelings, but your job is not to come here every day to write about them. Our job is to inform an audience about what's going on. And then what we loved was getting, over 2 million women registered to vote.
Insane.
Creating a petition for, tens of thousands of women to talk about needed transparency around paid family leave. And we would drive home, like those aren't things that you have the ability to do if you are partisan, because you lose that trust with your audience.
Do you think, this is just outside of theSkimm, just founders, there's so much noise and pressure out there for every brand to show where they stand. What do you all think about that?
I don't think that it's every brand's role to weigh in on everything.
Agreed.
And I think, at the end of the day, there is a role for brands to play a part when it makes sense.
When it makes sense, exactly.
But also it is inauthentic if you are making money as a business off of one thing and a way things are done, and then you're kind of being a mouthpiece for when it is popular or when it's in the news for change.
To ride the wave.
Yeah.
So talking about paid parental leave and everything that you all have championed, you were living it as well. I thought I was a feminist, and then I had kids and I was like, wow, women are amazing and need a lot more than what they're being given right now. How did motherhood change? And you just welcomed a baby. Congratulations.
Yes, I have a 12-week-old at home.
Oh my gosh.
I think for me, I will sum up the biggest kind of worldview change was when we started the business. I think it was on some level to like make my parents proud. And I don't say that as like being unique. I think that's kind of every 20-something, right?
But not
like
a lot of people say that. I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I have said this before where, my parents, I probably didn't tell you guys this before, so I hope this isn't like too much of a record scratch, but my mom's uncle is Bernie Madoff. And so they went through a lot as when I was a kid. And I felt like when I really think about where my ambition started from, it was to like, I'm going to get emotional, but it was like to like right that wrong for them and see if I could like cover it up somehow. And I never realized like that was where it came from. So that's refreshing.
Yeah.
To
And
hear.
I don't know if it's, thinking about it that way too. Yeah. It's like, you're almost like, I don't know if it's pride always. Like, yes, you want to make your parents proud, but I think it goes deeper than that, right? It's like, what is the thing that is some sort of chip on your shoulder? Yeah. Or what is the thing that like from how you grew up, right? That you are probably for a lot of people subconsciously like trying to hide, to be like, I got past that, or, that's totally not part of me anymore. And then I think if you are lucky, you get to a point of doing things to make yourself proud. Mm-hmm. And I think having kids to me shifted both of those things, where at the end of the day, I really want to make my kids proud. Mm-hmm. And I think that clarifies a lot of things, because in that it is, I want to make sure that I can take care of them financially. And I think that there is a long history of female founders specifically getting flack for being like, I started a company to make money. Mm-hmm. You know what? You start companies to make money, to support yourself, 100%. To support your family. And I think as a parent, it was very clear to me that I was doing a job and I loved what I did and I was proud of it. But at the end of the day, it was my job. Yeah. And I was doing a job to make money to support my family. Yeah, get that part. And the other part with my kids too was, is the amount of time I'm spending away from them worth it? And I felt, for me, very, very quickly, especially after we were talking about this, I had 2 kids. My first 2 are close in age, that I knew that I wanted to be a working parent for me. And because of that, it wasn't a question of, if my time was going to be like, if I was debating whether to stay home with the kids or work. It was more if this form of work is the type of work that I want to spend the hours doing. And then I think it is, and this is really weird for us at the company, like thinking about our role. My kids aren't going to ever remember what we did. And it's funny, my 5.5-year-old, the oldest of all of our kids, he kind of knows. He goes like, you and Aunt Carly worked together. And sometimes he'll remember the name of the company and he'll, but they were in the office. I have pictures of both of them there, but they're never going to remember that. And I think that to me ultimately really framed like, who am I making proud and over what period of time?
I was talking to this Olympian and she talked about how, she had to was breastfeeding at the Beijing Olympics, and her daughter is older now and doesn't talk about the time that her mom wasn't there, but talks about just all the amazing things that her mom did. But I think women were just socialized to put the absence, give the absence so much more real estate than what we're actually doing in that absence for our kids. And so is it worth it is a question that,
and I also think you said it so well. A lot of the time it's actually not about them. It's about you. Yep. They're going to go to a music class if they're going, someone's taking them. Either it's, they're doing it because it's part of their daycare where they already are, or, for me, I've had a wonderful nanny who has taken them and they didn't know the difference. Yeah. It's more like I put guilt on myself, or I felt I was missing something. And that is very different than my kids feeling like they were missing something.
I mean, I saw this tweet or something a while ago, and it was like, yeah, you're a first-time mom. Your kid is also a first-time baby. They don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
that's right.
But one of the things that I told you guys when I reached out to you that I was like, oh my gosh, I have to interview them. Of course, I fell in love with theSkimm, but what I fell in love with more was watching you two build it together. Yep. I have always joked that there needs to be a podcast called Co-Founder Therapy. So if anyone's like listening or watching, I want someone to start this, where every co-founders I meet, there's some blow up, break up, this person didn't do this and I'm buying them out, and it just doesn't end well. You all have such a different story, or at least it looks that way. Tell me, how have you all made this work?
I was going to try to come up with a joke, but I didn't have a good one.
I know. I'm like, I'm too tired.
I once interviewed somebody to work for us, and they were like, so how do you and Danielle, how does that work with the two of you? I'm like, I hate her. But I was obviously kidding, and their face dropped. I was like, I'm kidding. No, I think, actually it goes back to what we were saying before around being really clear of what our priorities were. What are the things that are never worth it? And truly, one of the best pieces of advice we got early on was from a lawyer who we didn't even end up working with, who said, you guys need to go get a bottle of wine, get drunk, and talk about all the stuff right now that you don't want to talk about. And we did that. And what that really meant was creating a prenup. We honestly have had more conversations about our relationship than I have with my husband. Because about how do we communicate? What, and I do this, how do you feel? How does this make you feel?
It's also probably two
What's
women working together.
Yeah, literally. And also, we have a prenup. And we had one. And it was really clear of before even life happened around, hey, if you ever need to take some time, what would that look like? Will that change anything? And then, you know what? 10 years later, that happened. And it's, I think having those conversations set a framework for us to be able to really create a support system for the company and for ourselves. And I think also we were super, super protective of the other, but also of friendship versus we call it the life wife, work wife, which is there was the friend time, and then there was we work together, we're running a business, this is business, we are in it, and this is not the time to be you just hurt my feelings, or I wish you invited me to dinner tonight. I don't know. Yeah. We were really clear about what are the times we're going to talk about that, and then when we hang out socially, don't you dare bring some annoying work thing. There was trying to tune out.
Bride that went viral years ago because she sent out this really detailed spreadsheet and memo to her whole bridal party about here's the cost, here's what the bachelorette, here are the outfits, here's line items, here are your responsibilities as a bride, and the internet was just divided. Half of them were she's a nut job, the other half were oh, this is great, rather than just being surprised with how much it's going to cost. I am in the team that is great because like you said, you had the prenup, and clarity will beat confusion. And I think so much conflict comes from just thinking that the other person is living off of the same user manual that you have. Yeah. You're just of course everyone would do this, when you're no, everyone has different user manuals. How do you all disagree? What does that look like literally when you're she says up, you say down, or how does a healthy disagreement look like? Because of course you're going to have them.
I think it's actually very similar. My kids are babies, so I don't know what it will be like to disagree in front of them one day with their dad, my husband. But it's a little bit like parents shouldn't argue in front of the kids, where we've been in a million meetings where we disagree with the other, and we'll question the other, why do you think that? And then honestly, we just kind of stop talking about it, because then we'll go back privately and be I don't think that's a good idea. Why do you think that? And here's why I think this is confusing to other people, or here's where I think this is a mistake. So I think just honestly protecting, it's not just protecting us, it was protecting the team, not to make them feel there's enough things to be stressed about in work, with a startup, et cetera. One of the things we never wanted anybody to be stressed about was I've got to manage the relationship between the two of them. Yeah. That would be a disaster. Yeah. And, you know, people ask all the time, like, well, how did it work? And I'm like, I wish I could write, like, I'd make a lot of money if I wrote like a really good manual about the perfect recipe. But we did just know how to communicate with the other and keep the other informed, or it was never anybody's job to do that except the other, so that when we disagreed, you know, we would openly like disagree and, you know, in front of people and be like, I don't like that design, or it makes me feel that way, or I don't think we should pitch it that way to this brand, or I don't know if we should cover the story this way. But like when it like got to the next level, we would do it privately.
Yeah. I'm learning a lot right now. My husband works for my company, and so
we should interview.
See,
you.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know how you do that.
Dude, I was just talking to Brianna, you know, from Gotham Productions. Her husband works here. I'm like, that's another podcast that needs to happen, is like couples who work together. And we had a team meeting, and all of our team is remote, so it was on Zoom. And Jake, who is definitely in the operations, but he had to make a PowerPoint for some sort of thing that he was presenting, and he had this like arrow animation that was like pointing to something, and he was on that slide for like 5 minutes, and it kept and I was literally like, if that arrow animates one more time, I'm about to lose my shit. And luckily he's like, he can take the heat, like he gets it. But then I also had a moment where I was like, maybe I shouldn't have like put him down in front of the whole team.
I have no idea how spouses work together.
No clue. And then you're like, is it really about the arrow, or is it about or
is it about that you didn't pick up the dinner last night? Yeah, totally. I did get really good advice, because we've gone to like, you know, couples therapy of just like, how do we, once we realized that he was going to work, and then we were also having kids, we're like, this is about to be a shit show. And the couples therapist, the thing that we've taken with us is, during the day, 9 to 5, you can be colleagues and you can be married. And then 5 to whatever, you can be married, but you're no longer colleagues, which is exactly what you two were talking about, is like, don't, you know, do that. So we really have to like nip each other in that. But I also wanted to talk about the acquisition, because you know, my first company that I started, Headbands of Hope, got acquired. And it's this thing that's like on your, like this summit, and so few women reach that summit. But there's also a lot of beliefs that summit's going to solve all your problems, and you're just going to go into this abyss. Tell me, deal closed, whatever number hit your bank account, were you feeling relief? Were you feeling grief? Like, talk me through those emotions.
I think,
first of all, we should also say, when the deal closes, we never have done that before, so we're on a Zoom, and like literally with lawyers, well, also it had been, you know, and anyone who has done a big deal, you have so many meetings and so many calls and so many Zooms, and it's hard to tell which ones are like the important ones and which ones are the ones that are like, you just have to show up and say like yes or no or something. Yeah. So we're on the Zoom. I'm like, I literally have my husband like sitting like off camera and being like, this is it. Danielle is in a bathrobe. And
I thought it was a camera off Zoom.
What are you doing?
It was also, okay, first of all, it was at like 7 in the morning. It was at 7 in the morning.
She came on the Zoom in a bathrobe. She texted me. She goes, I didn't know we were going to be on camera. I was like, I don't really know how to help you right now.
And then I was like, what's worse, being late for the closing call or showing up?
So we sold the company, Danielle, in a robe, which honestly, it's kind of how we started. We started from the couch.
Felt like it's fitting.
So full circle.
Yeah. But honestly, like, we feel nothing but gratitude. Yeah. We sold to a great partner. They were amazing. They are amazing. We have a great relationship with the CEO, who really helped us, you know, make the proper transition out. Our team has been so resilient and wonderful, and it's not easy to like, you know, change a lot of things, even if you don't think a lot of it's going to change. It's, you know, you're a part of a corporate entity now. Yeah. I think we talked to so many founders who are like, and I don't know if you felt this, but I remember I had a Zoom call with a founder and they were like, listen, like, I've been through this. I was so depressed for months and I'm here for you. And I was like,
didn't feel that. Yeah.
And I think it's because, again, like, we are always like, what are we working backwards from? Like, what's our goal? What are our priorities? And we feel like we did something that we're both so proud of. And that has made a difference. And we, to your point, like a lot of women have not been able to raise venture capital, let alone multiple rounds, let alone sell, let alone have the brand live on, create the impact. And I think for us being able to do that was a huge moment. And I think also being like, I didn't sell myself. Like I did something that has been a huge part of my identity that at times felt like my whole identity, but it's not actually like myself. And I think it was like the right moment to be like, we did this thing for almost 14 years, which is crazy. And it's not going to be the only thing we do.
Yeah.
I think so doing that, having the brand continue, having our team continue to usher it into this next evolution, knowing that like we came out of this together, is nothing but honestly but like gratitude.
Yeah.
Like we just feel really grateful.
So when I mean, obviously you all were paying yourself before, but I feel like an acquisition feels different. It's more of a lump sum, if you will. I interviewed Ann Malum on this show, founder of Solid Core. We talked about, that moment that she sold Solid Core for $100 million. And like, well, what was your first purchase? Like, was there, and she's like, I got a designer bag, but it wasn't for me. Was there anything that you all bought?
You know what's so funny about that? Like over so many years, I have thought about that.
Yeah.
It happened, didn't get anything.
Nothing.
Yeah. Okay, so then let me follow up.
But I will tell you, the first time when we ever made any money doing the Skimm, we literally, we went to get expensive haircuts in New York City. And we sat with our laptops in the hair salon watching the wire like come in and like refreshing and then being like, we can afford this haircut.
Yeah.
We can afford it.
And that, honestly, that like moment, nothing will ever like feel as good as that moment did. And that, it was amazing because we were like, we have like done something from like literally nothing.
Yeah.
And so I think about that moment when, we were really young and like just being like, did this. And nothing has ever felt as good as that.
Okay, so yeah, follow up to that. True or false, not to put you on the spot, money doesn't buy happiness.
I think it can sure help.
Yeah.
I think money buys support. And I think
presence.
It can buy peace of mind.
Yeah. Yes.
I also, unfortunately, today it can buy health in not all circumstances, but I think that it's a very different society where money doesn't buy happiness.
What's your thought?
I 100% agree. I think it is anybody who does not have money as a stressor in their life is in such a privileged place.
Totally.
So like if you could just focus on your inner happiness, that's great. And I'm not like minimizing that. That's its own category of stuff, but money can sure help get you there.
I totally agree. And that wasn't the narrative growing up. It was like, just work for something you believe in and do something that matters. I'm like, well, it could be both.
Yes.
I mean, we just
The trick is to make it both.
The trick is to make it both, which I know is easier said than done.
Yeah.
But we, for me as a working mom, like money has bought my village that I need.
That is,
Exactly.
We just hired this amazing woman, Emily, who comes over every Sunday and meal preps for the week. And it's like, my world has changed. I'm not at 5 o'clock being like, the potatoes need to get out of the oven. And I'm playing Magnetiles now.
I mean, I think that there is probably maybe truth to it up to a certain point,
there's a threshold.
Right? Like there's a threshold. And I think there's also, I read about this, like that there is an amount of money where after that, it doesn't. It's like,
here we go.
Yeah. And I don't know what it is. I don't remember. It's more like, I think that when you have enough money to have health insurance, child care, that, that you're able to take care of your family, and that can look very different. For some people it's kids, for some people it's kids and parents and grandparents and whatever it is. When those base needs are met, then I think, then it comes down to like, okay, what do you value? And how do you define happiness? But if those base needs aren't met, then that is a totally different conversation.
You're not thinking of your next big creative idea when you're wondering how you're going to eat. Like it's just, and so I say that all the time with, people have said, well, how have you done this? I'm like, because I had the safety net. I had the privilege growing up where I didn't have debt from college that I was trying to pay off, and had a leg up that so many women don't have. Yeah. What do you think women need right now in this moment? Like, whether it's founders, working moms, what do they need to know, I guess? Yeah.
Actually, I've been really obsessing over like this AI debate right now. Yeah. Like, you know, we're talking a week of all these college commencement addresses where all these speakers are getting booed for mentioning AI.
Okay, noted. And I would give a commencement in like 3 days. So
well, and like all these, first of all, that's very cool. But also, like, literally every speaker that talks about the importance of AI is getting booed off the stage. And I think right now there's this, you know, now there's all this talk about the what is it, the next girl bossification of AI. And I think right now, and this is not like specific to women, this is specific to everybody, is like we're in this rapidly changing environment that, whether we want to call it the Industrial Revolution, the new invention of the internet, whatever it is, things are changing. And it's not a debate over should so much power be in the hands of few, or a few have too much money. Like, this is not a debate about that. It's the world is changing, careers are changing, and like everybody needs to adapt. And you don't want to be the equivalent today of, you know, 30 years ago saying like, I think that this like internet thing might not hang around.
Right.
And I think right now it's like everybody needs to be adapting in some way to learning how to use AI. And that does not mean you are like, and I love this oligarch. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all. So I think, you know, the reality is women in particular, the jobs that are going to likely be replaced faster happen to be held by women more than men. Now, that is why you have a lot of women who are talking about women adapting to AI. And I know there's a lot of online pushback as to like those certain women who are talking about it, but I'm not talking about that controversy. I think right now it's just, my advice to everybody is like, stay up to date on technology. No matter what you want to do, you want to have agency in your life. And agency in your life, that means your health. It means raising a family if that's what you want to have. If you don't, you should have the agency to just make that choice. And it means agency in your career. And so today, like what that looks like is, how do you make enough money in a time where the cost of living is out of control? How do you make enough money to afford healthcare, which unfortunately in this country, like, is not a given?
Right.
How do you have enough money to be able to take paid family leave? Because unfortunately in this country, that's not a given. And how do you keep your career options open? And so to me, like, the advice that we're personally taking is like, just get smart about how technology is changing.
Yeah. Okay, last question I have for both of you that I ask everyone on the show is, what does making it look like for you now? And how is that different from 10 years ago or when you started theSkimm?
I think it's a great question. And I think there are so many layers to it. But I think for me, making it now means having a flexibility over my day and my career. And I would not have even like thought that to be one of my top answers to this question, you know, even I think 6 years ago. But yeah, I think being able to have the privilege to say yes or no to whether or not I'm going to do something or what time or what day is adds so much to my day, my ability to have the relationship that I want, hopefully with my husband, my relationship to work, my relationship with my kids. It's all dependent. Oh, with you? well, but you also have that. So it's like, okay. But yes, I think that ability to have flexibility in my life is a huge part of making it.
Yeah, my answer is actually like not very different. I would say it slightly differently for myself, which is, before I started theSkimm, I was like obsessed with the idea in my old job and that I wasn't like living up to my potential. And I was like, I felt like I was wasting time. I felt like I just wasn't like living up to what I knew I could do. And when I started theSkimm, I was like, no, this is it. It's like the shoe fit. I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. I felt like that feeling was such an amazing feeling that was like so visceral that my goal is to like always feel that and to always feel like I'm living up to my potential, but now with the caveat of having the flexibility to choose when I want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And like right now, like I'm really grateful that I have the flexibility to like take a beat and figure out what's next. And not everybody can do that.
Yeah. Well, I just have to say to both of you, one of the ways that I think about making it now is not just like goals that I can check off my list, but goals that I'm working towards that I think will outlive me.
Mm-hmm.
Where, you know, my daughter's generation or her kids. And I just hope you recognize what you all have done that will outlive you.
So nice.
I mean,
Thank you.
the people that are voting, the people that feel like they know what's going on, the people that, you know, might have a new policy that is created because of what you all have done.
Yeah.
I just hope that you can, no matter what, put your head on your pillow at night, wake up 2 hours later for your baby, but put your head on your pillow at night knowing that you have created something that will outlive you. So Danielle,
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Making It with Jess Ekstrom. Make sure you're subscribed and leave a review if you're enjoying it. See you next time.